So, 2026. I can't believe it's a new year already. And if you guys are anything like me, I love making vision boards with my friends. So as I'm filming this, it is the middle of January right now. We've already kind of had our start into 2026. And I thought it would be fun to sit down with you guys and do a little recap of what was on my vision board last year and basically how it went, and also show you guys what is on my vision board for 2026. So let's get into it. Like, I know we say this every single year, but genuinely, it doesn't feel like 2026. It feels like 2022 latest. So starting with this photo that's on the top left, someone holding a key to a new apartment, a really nice apartment, kind of to represent me moving into a new space. And there's another photo down here of a girl walking through a town square in Switzerland. And this was meant to represent myself and my partner at the time moving to Zurich or somewhere else in Switzerland and getting our own place there. This did not happen. We're actually starting with the most dramatic update of the entire vision board. The rest of these are going to be much more boring. What ended up happening was, instead of moving to Switzerland together, we ended up ending our relationship after around 6 years together, which is definitely one of the defining moments of 2025. So moving to Switzerland, moving into a new apartment there did not happen. Instead of moving there, I ended up fully moving to Vienna instead. I was back and forth between Vienna and Munich for basically the past 2-3 years. And now I am fully here and have been here for the last 6 months. The apartment that I'm in now is shared between myself and my parents. So we share the apartment, we split the rent, but the majority of the time I have the apartment to myself, which is definitely really great. And it means that I can also keep my rent relatively low for the amount of space that I have. So in a sense, I did move into a new apartment, but also not really. So I will still cross off the new apartment thing, but Switzerland definitely did not happen. Then we have these two pictures of a view out of a plane window and a picture of Palawan in the Philippines, just to represent traveling, and specifically traveling to the Philippines, which I actually did. It was such a fun trip. It was about 2.5 weeks long, and the spots that we were in the Philippines actually look very similar to this photo, so we can consider that one ticked off. Then there's a little image that says "She speaks French," and a picture of someone working on their laptop with a view of the Eiffel Tower. This was to represent the little volunteering stint that I did in France for 6 weeks. I already knew that I wanted to improve my French, and this was more to represent not specifically being in Paris, but to just spend more time in France, spend more time learning French, which I did more at the beginning of the year, but after the 6-week trip to France and after moving to Vienna and starting my new job, it definitely fell off. So I absolutely do not speak French right now, and it certainly regressed in the last weeks and months because I haven't been putting in the work. So this isn't something that I would check off because I fell off this so hard, and it's really something that I want to pick up again in 2026. Then we have a photo of this girl who's like repotting a plant. I'm not exactly sure why I put this on my vision board at the beginning of last year, but I just knew that I wanted to do something more physical with my hands, something to do with nature, and it actually worked out really well because when I was in France, I ended up doing a lot of gardening and a lot of yard work, plant work, things like that. So that's definitely something that I checked off, and it was a really nice time also learning more. It sounds so silly, but like learning more about plants, because that was never really something that I did. I don't have any plants at home, so that was actually just really nice. I have a picture of this girl sitting in a convertible car with palm trees. I don't know, maybe in Miami or something. It didn't really represent anything. I just really liked the vibe of it. Same with this super cool looking girl who's sitting in a car and she's like putting on her earrings and she's wearing glasses and she's dressed in a really great outfit. I also generally like the vibe of that, but it didn't represent anything specific. I think it was more just how I wanted to kind of carry myself through the world. And I will actually consider those ticked off because there were many moments last year where I just had a sick outfit on and I was really feeling myself basically like the women in these photos. So we will consider that crossed off. There's a picture of someone just reading cozily in bed to represent, you know, reading much more throughout the year. I didn't feel like I read as much as I wanted to last year. I read around 22, 24 books last year, which is actually way more than I thought I had. So it's definitely pretty good, but I definitely do also want to keep up a reading habit and be on my phone less. But in terms of how much I read last year, I think it went pretty well. So we're gonna take that off as well. Then there's a photo of a woman playing on the piano. Piano is something that I did for a couple of years years when I was a kid, and I really wanted to get back into it as an adult. We have an electric piano here in the study, and I just really wanted to get more comfortable with the piano again, learn a couple of pieces, and kind of rediscover it as a hobby now that I'm an adult as well, because back when I was a kid, I don't know if it's the same for you guys, but a lot of the hobbies and extracurriculars we do as kids, we don't really appreciate them because in some senses they might also have been put upon us by our parents, which wasn't really the case here. I did enjoy playing the piano, but now that I'm the one who's choosing to pick it up again, I appreciate it that much more, if that makes any sense. At the start of the year, I wasn't in Vienna much, so I didn't have access to the piano. Then in the spring, I was in France, and then over the summer when I finally moved to Vienna, I really got into it. I was practicing, you know, like my scales and the pieces that I wanted to learn all the time. But then for some reason in the last couple of months of last year, it also completely fell off and I didn't really do that much with it. I will check it off just because I did get a really solid start into it, but I did fall off towards the end of the year and it is something that I want to pick back up again in 2026. Then we have two photos that represent YouTube. There's this one photo of someone holding a camera towards them just to represent vlogging and filming more. And then there's also a picture of a YouTube play button to represent hitting, I think, 100,000 subscribers, which obviously is a very lofty goal and obviously did not happen because your girl was wildly inconsistent with YouTube last year. Actually, let me check how many videos I even posted last year because I bet it's embarrassing as hell. Okay, actually I posted more videos than I expected. So I posted 20 videos last year on my YouTube channel, which is not terrible, but I know that last year I really wanted to be way more consistent with my channel and coming up with new ideas for videos and not overthinking too much about what I was going to post. That did not happen. I definitely didn't have any direction in the kind of content that I wanted to post. And to be honest, I still don't. I feel like this is still a time where I get to experiment with what I find interesting and see what other people want to see from me and from this channel. So I don't really have a strategy per se. It's more of a, I think that this could be interesting, so I'm gonna do a video about that. But I think that a big part of why it didn't really work for me last year is because I did a lot of vlogs, and vlogs are super fun. I love doing them, but they take, for me at least, a lot more time and effort to edit and come up with kind of a cohesive thread or storyline through the vlog so that it's actually interesting and relevant for you guys, which is why I'm thinking about also doing less vlogs this year and more informative stuff like the one that I did previously about like all the books that I read in 2025 and what I want to read this year, or the one before that where I was like testing different influencer products, because it is again like more informative and it's easier for me to find that common thread than in vlogs, even though vlogs are really fun. So for the picture of the person holding the camera, I will check that off because I did manage to be semi-consistent with creating videos last year. Obviously, the play button is not going to be checked off because as I'm recording this, I have about 440 subscribers. If you are one of those subscribers, thank you so much. If you're not a subscriber, but you do enjoy the general vibe of my videos, then please do subscribe and let me know what you want to see from me as well. I really appreciate any input. Then we have a lot of photos that are related to health and fitness. There's like a picture of a loaded Greek salad and what looks to be a mango coconut smoothie, just to represent more healthy eating. Honestly, I'm not going to check this off because I ate so much crap last year. I wanted to take my health and my nutrition much more seriously, and to be completely honest, I didn't. I tried some new recipes, I did some meal prep, which I'm very happy with, but on the other hand, the ratio of clean to non-clean food that I wanted to have, what most people recommend is kind of an 80-20 rule. That was definitely not the ratio that I had last year. I'm not going to beat myself up over it, but I definitely don't consider myself having kind of checked those boxes in terms of healthy eating for last year. This photo that says follow the plan, not your mood, which is such a vibe, I really love it. However, I also will not check that off because a lot of last year was me giving in to my mood, to my tiredness, to doom scrolling first thing in the morning. And while I try not to beat myself up over it way after it's happened, it is just the case that at so many points I did follow my mood instead of the plan that I had set for myself, which is something that I'm still going to continue working on this year going forward and trying to be better about following the plan and not my mood. But as it stands for last year, not checking it off, it's okay, we're gonna do better. There's two photos here that represent doing more weightlifting, which I'm also not going to check off because even though I did do some strength workouts and some weight workouts here and there, I didn't really get into it and make it a habit or a routine so much so that I can say it was a regular part of my year. So that is also something that I want to revisit this year, but for last year, it definitely did not happen. Same with this one photo of a woman at a tennis court, obviously to represent playing tennis. And now I have a tennis racket, which I actually bought either at the beginning of last year or at the end of 2024. Since I've bought that tennis racket, I've played tennis twice. But I do really, really want to play. I'm just having trouble finding people who want to play tennis with me and aren't already amazing at it because I'm a total beginner. So I need to find somebody who's also bad at tennis so that we can kind of learn together. But for 2025, that definitely did not happen. There's also one to represent running, which I did a couple of times last year. For some parts, I was consistent with it. For other parts, not really. I'm not sure that I would cross this off, to be honest, because I also wanted to make it a regular part of my routine, which I didn't. So we're not going to cross that off. But what we are going to cross off are the 3 photos that represent Pilates and ballet. So there's this one photo of a girl doing what looks like a crazy Pilates move on the reformer machine. I put this photo in there because I wanted to get into Pilates more because it just looks like such good core exercise. It's something that you can do with so many people, and because it's so popular right now, everyone's down to try it, even if they haven't before. So I started doing classes when I moved to Vienna, and in one of the classes that I did, we actually ended up doing this exact move on the reformer machine. And as we were doing the move, I remember thinking, holy shit, this is the exact picture that's on my vision board. So that one we can definitely consider checked off. And the other one is these 2 pictures that represent ballet. And this one 100% came true this year. I started doing ballet classes around September or October of 2025. I love it so much. The thing is as well is that I feel like I'm so bad at it because I feel like I don't have enough strength, enough flexibility, enough whatever. But every single time I go to class, it is so much fun. It always pushes me, it always challenges me. And since starting in October, I have actually already noticed improvements in technique, improvements in posture, in balance, in strength, and so on. And I'm so glad that I started taking these lessons on a regular basis, even though a part of me was also like, what am I actually doing this for? Because at this point, you know, I'm also 30, so a part of me is like, oh, you're too old to be starting something new, and this is never gonna be like a career you can't perform anymore because it's like already too late. But on the other hand, it's like, that doesn't mean that just because I'm past a certain age where I could conceivably become a professional dancer, I shouldn't do it anymore. The goal is not to become a professional dancer. The goal is to learn something new and explore what I can do and what I can learn and just see if it's something that I would enjoy. And honestly, was one of the best decisions that I made last year to actually start going to those classes. So that we can consider checked off. There are 2 texts that represent finances. So one, financial independence is the ultimate freedom, and then a little image that says financial freedom loading. Financial freedom for me is definitely still in the loading phase. We haven't achieved it yet, but I'm happy with the way that things are going. So I generally, in my head, this is checked off as well. And the last thing that I put on my vision board, which was right in the middle, was just a text that says 2025 is my year. And you know what? It really was. There's another thing that I did here called Year Compass, which if any of you guys want to do it, it's completely free. It's just a multi-page journaling thing that you do at the end/beginning of every single year. I've done this for 3 years in a row now. If you guys want to have a cool structured way of looking back at your previous year and of looking ahead to the next year, I actually highly recommend this. I'll leave a link down in the description. Nothing in this video is sponsored or affiliated or anything like that, but it is something that I find very nice. So what you do basically in this Year Compass, you look at your past year and look at your calendar week by week, and if you see any significant events or stuff that you've saved in your calendar, then you just like write it down here. But I wanted to go through this quickly as well because of the text in my vision board that just says 2025 is my year. These are the most significant things that I have experienced in 2025. In January, I had a friend who I knew in grade school and hadn't seen in almost 15 years come visit me in Munich. And it was so great to catch up with her in person and have her meet some of the current friends in my life. It's always so nice when your old friends and your new friends meet, or when you're able to introduce people from your different friend groups to each other because you know that they'll get along, and they do get along, and this was one of those situations. It was just really wonderful. I also got the news here that I was going to be laid off from the job that I had back then. I was working in social media marketing, and they did some restructuring at the company where they basically got rid of half of the marketing team, and I was one of the people that they had to downsize. And that's when I decided to do my volunteering time abroad in France. In February, I turned 30, which was such a surreal day for me. I didn't have a big celebration. I just went to dinner with my parents and my partner at the time. We went to a restaurant in Vienna and had cheese fondue. And afterwards, we watched the Falco musical, which was so much fun and really entertaining. Even for someone who's not a fan or a super fan of the artist Falco, that was actually such a good musical. 3 of my best friends from Munich also came to Vienna to visit me and celebrate my birthday with me. And then these friends from Munich met some of my friends in Vienna, and they also got along great, which I knew they would, and again was really nice to see. I started doing life coaching career coaching sessions, which were also really valuable, not just in thinking about what kind of job I wanted to go for, but also about what I found important in my life and in my career and in my relationships in general. March, April, May, that was a lot of traveling for me. I went to London with two of my friends. We watched the Wicked musical, which was fantastic. Honestly, made me cry. And at the very end of the month, I went to France for my first volunteering role. It was a manual labor volunteering job where we were doing things like laying cement for floors, putting plaster on walls, things like that, because it was an old stone house that was being fixed up again. I was also full in my job hunt during this time. I lost track of how many jobs I applied for, but the amount of no thank yous or even non-responses that I had during this time is absolutely insane. This is kind of a random one, but during Easter Sunday, I was in Toulouse and I was staying with my cousin in her spare room, and I decided to go to the main basilica in Toulouse for Easter Sunday Mass, which was all in French, so I didn't understand any of it, but it was such a beautiful building and the music was so epic and the vibes were just off the charts because, you know, it's Easter Sunday High Mass at the main basilica in Toulouse. And for some reason, that was just such a core memory of the year because I was also there basically all by myself. And I just remember that being a really special time. Then May was the most travel-heavy month of the entire year. I traveled then from Toulouse to Corrèze for my second volunteering stint at a cycling bed and breakfast. The hosts there were so sweet. They really made me feel like part of the family. And it was during this time where I was staying with them that I did the final interviews and got the job offer for the job that I am doing right now. So after that volunteering stint, that's when we had like back-to-back travel. So I ended up going back Lyon, Munich, all the way back to Vienna, which took well over 24 hours and I was exhausted by the end of it. And there was very little turnaround time because I basically had to immediately clean and repack my things and then head back to Munich because we were going to go to Hawaii, Tokyo, and then have our 2.5-week holiday in the Philippines. It was my first time in Hawaii. We stayed in Maui. It was unbelievably beautiful. I mean, I'd always heard that Hawaii was amazing, but it really blew me away. And the people were so nice as well. It was just gorgeous. The weather was amazing. The food was amazing. The surfing was amazing. It was a really unforgettable trip. The 20 hours that we were in Tokyo, we didn't get to see much. We did a little bit of sightseeing, but from what I saw, it was also a beautiful place to be. I would love to go back there someday where I can also stay longer than 20 hours. And then the entire trip in the Philippines was also very nostalgic as well, being on one of the islands where I used to live when I was 3 years old. Just being in the Philippines again made me so happy. In June is when I officially moved to Vienna and started my new job. In August, we ended up going to the Fringe Festival in Edinburgh, which was so funny. I got robbed on my very last day when we were in London, where I was on the tube. I was kind of just sitting like this and I was on my phone and then I had put my phone away and there were about 5 people on the tube because it was 6:30 in the morning. And then this guy walked down the train carriage in my direction and I saw him from the corner of my eye, but I just thought that he was gonna walk past me. But what ended up happening was that he stopped right in front of me. So I'm facing this way, he's obviously facing this way and he's standing up, I'm sitting down. And he reached his hand out and he grabbed the necklaces that I was wearing. I was wearing 2 kind of thin chain necklaces. And genuinely this guy reached out, he grabbed onto the necklaces that I was wearing and tried to rip these necklaces off my neck. My first thought wasn't, oh God, I'm being robbed right now. It was for some reason, oh, someone I know has seen me and has decided to come say hello. But no, I was being robbed. So I kind of looked up and I was like, what the f? And there was another man who was sitting across from me, facing in my direction. And then so this guy stood up and kind of blocked this kid's path so he couldn't just rip my necklaces off and then continue on his way. I ended up grabbing this kid's like arm and biting him on the wrist. I mean, still, I don't know why it was my instinct to do that, which in hindsight could have ended really badly. Like he could have had a knife, he could have had some other weapon, he could have punched me. So in hindsight, maybe it wasn't the best thing to do, but it was the only thing I could think of. So I bit him as hard as I could. And then that's when he finally kind of pulled his hand back. But at that point, he had managed to snap off one of my necklaces. And since this other man was still blocking his path, he ended up just turning around and leaving through the tube doors just as it pulled into the station. And then when he stepped off the tube, he looked back at me and then flipped me off. And then I flipped him off back and then he ended up leaving. But that incident actually really shook me and I was so mad as well. The only bright side is that it also happened at the end of the trip and not in the middle or at the beginning, because I think if it had happened at the start, it really would have ruined the whole trip for me. In August is also when I started ballet classes. In September, we had the joint birthdays of 2 of my cousins and we basically combined it with a family reunion as well. There were so many members of family that I hadn't seen in such a long time, and it was really nice to talk to everybody, catch up with them, see how they're doing, what they're up to these days and in the last year since we've seen them, and that was just generally a really great day and a great weekend. In October is when I started at the choir, which was also one of my best decisions of 2025. I have always really, really loved singing. Obviously, you know, people sing in the shower or at home all the time, but it's made me so happy to be able to get these regular practices with music and see the improvements in our performance and also in our vocal abilities. And even though I started it late in the year, because it's tied to a university, they only start in September, October of every year. So even though it came quite late in the year, it was still one of the absolute highlights of 2025 for me. November didn't have one standout event, but it was just a very social month. There were various outings with friends, different after work things with colleagues that were all super fun, and I'm very grateful to have made these connections and these friendships so soon after moving to a new city properly. And in December, I went to Oman for Christmas, went to the orchestra with my parents for New Year's Eve. We were in bed before 11 p.m., but just going to a live orchestra performance was so nice, and I don't know why I haven't done it before. The highlight of December, aside from being with my parents for Christmas and for New Year's, was hopping over to Dubai for 2 days with my mom, because I had a couple of friends from high school and from middle school who were also in Dubai, because some of them have recently moved back there, some of them had stayed there the whole time, and some of them were also just there for Christmas holidays. And I ended up being able to catch up with a group of friends that I hadn't seen in 15 years. Like, we genuinely have not seen each other since high school. And if you ever catch up with someone that you haven't seen in a long time, it feels so weird, especially with this kind of time gap, because when you're 15, there are some things that you remember from high school so well, and you remember what these people were like. And on one hand, nothing has changed. It was also like, wow, they kind of look exactly the same as they did. I mean, obviously they're grown up, we're all grown up now, but their faces are the same. You know, when I looked at their eyes and the way that they smile, the way they talk, it's the same. But on the other hand, everyone's so grown up. One of them has their own marketing agency. One of them does cybersecurity consulting. You know, one of them is married. It's absolutely crazy to see in which direction everyone's lives have gone. It's like you've completely fast forwarded a huge chunk of their life, and it doesn't quite match how you remember them anymore. But personality-wise, they're all the same. They were already fantastic people in high school, and they're still fantastic people. And it just made me feel so lucky that I had the chance to see them again after all of this time. One of the absolute highlights of 2025. So going back to the reason that I recapped all of this stuff in the first place, for the last thing that was on my vision board, which was the statement that 2025 is my year. Yeah, there have been some downs in the year and some stressful situations, but overall, it was 100% my year. And when I'm able to look back on everything that occurred in 2025, I'm just so blown away by all the things that have actually happened in this year. Even the sad moments, the stressful moments, because the growth that has come from those moments has also been very valuable. And I know and believe that 2026 will also be my year. Okay, so now that I have successfully yapped away about 2025, let's actually look at what is on the vision board for 2026. I have it on my phone, I have it on my iPad, I have it on my laptop, so I have it on all of my screens. So there is no escaping my vision for 2026. We have a little photo of a teeny tiny plant growing out of the ground, just to symbolize that there is going to be more growth this year and that we need to be patient with ourselves in the growth that we are trying to experience. We cannot expect to go from a seed to a full-grown tree immediately. It is going to take time and effort and patience. I am horribly impatient with things that I want in my life. I always want it immediately. I'm terrible at delayed gratification, to be honest. So this is just a little reminder to have a little more patience. Some things just take time, and that's just the way it is. Then we have a sign, which I really, really love this photo. Self-explanatory. I just really love the messaging and the way that they've presented that. We've got a picture of a woman working what seems to be kind of like in the middle of the night to represent, again, not necessarily hustle culture, but some of the things that I want to achieve will require like a little bit of work. There might be some late nights involved, and that's okay. Then we have a photo of sheet music to represent both the piano and the choir, because that's something that I really want to focus on more this year. This semester in the choir, we are going to be covering Mozart's Requiem. This is my favorite page because it's absolutely ridiculous. These are all 4 parts, so it does include the soprano, the alto, the tenor, and the bass, as well as obviously any solos, but it just looks so overwhelming. But honestly, the fact that At the end of the semester, I am going to be able to like sing this entire thing. It's something that I am so looking forward to. You guys don't know how excited I am for this. The next two photos, again, we have represent ballet. I actually used one of the same photos from last year of that mirror selfie of a girl in her ballet outfit because I love it so much. And the other photo, which I really love, it looks kind of grimy and dirty and raw. And this is really just to represent the fact that the hard work that goes into it is not glamorous, but it's necessary. And so like, it's a little bit grittier, but I really like the vibes and the mood that this gives. The biggest photo on the vision board this year is a photo from the city center of Vienna. And this is just to represent really appreciating living in the city. It's the first time that I am properly living in Vienna my entire life. Previously, even when I have lived in Austria, it hasn't been in Vienna specifically, or I, would only be here for a couple of weeks every month, but I'd also be splitting my time between Vienna and Munich. So this is the first time that I am 100% fully living in the city, and I really want to make the most of it. I really want to romanticize and appreciate it. So that's what this photo is also for, to just remind me what an amazing city I am living in and to really take advantage of it and not take it for granted. I have two photos of freezing cold water to represent like the physical activity of doing ice baths, because I started doing them more often last year and I absolutely love them, but also to represent going into uncomfortable situations that you know are going to be good for you in the long run. Now there's a photo of a work setup, again, this time at a cafe, to just represent working on your own projects, working towards your dreams, working remotely, things like that, all things that I want to also be doing this year. There's this cool black and white photo of some people going running. I know I had a running photo in last year's vision board, but that was also a person running alone, and this time I would like to make it more of a social activity if I do go running. Then we've got three photos that kind of represent healthy eating and food again, which is not just to represent wanting to eat healthier, but it's also to represent wanting to try new recipes in 2026, because there was definitely a period of time where I didn't feel motivated to try new recipes. I was really like bare minimum, low effort cooking, and I really want to bring a little bit of effort and creativity back into the kitchen, and that would just add an extra layer of, I don't know, romanticizing your own day-to-day life. You do not need to go to a cafe to have a super cute sourdough toast with avocado and burrata. You can make it at home, and probably even better. We have two photos again this year that represent video creation and YouTube. One is the same picture from last year, which is the play button. The goal is just to be more consistent and put in the effort that I want to put into these videos. And the other photo that represents that, I also just really love this, because you can kind of see this woman's outfit in the photo. So you can also tell that the outfit is so sleek, so cool. So I really like the overall vibe that this photo gives. And the last photo on the vision board is just someone doing a puzzle. This is not just to represent a literal physical puzzle, because I got one as a Secret Santa gift last year from one of my friends. It is also a reminder to take time for oneself. It's okay to have hobbies that don't lead to a specific goal or a specific outcome, and it's nice to just have these things that you do to zone out and relax, and also as a reminder to have more hobbies that are more analog and that don't involve a screen in any way, shape, or form. So that is also everything that is on my 2026 vision board. And I would really love to know from you guys, what is on your vision board for 2026? Do you guys have any New Year's resolutions? Is there anything that you absolutely want to achieve this year? How has the year been so far for you? I know it's almost the end of January now, so we have already had a couple of weeks of 2026. How has it been? Please let me know. Also, let me know how your 2025 was. Did it go the way that you thought it was going to go? Did it go the way you hoped it was going to go? And as always, thank you guys for watching. I know that the beginning of a new year can be kind of an emotional time, because people are looking back on the previous year and seeing what they did or didn't achieve, and they feel some type of way about it, and are looking ahead to the new year with excitement and maybe apprehension as well, especially if the previous year did not go the way that they wanted it to or the way that they hoped it would. But also, whenever you're watching this, if you're watching this in the middle of the year, don't forget that you don't need to wait for a new year to make positive change into your life, to add things that you want to add into your life, to remove things that don't work for you anymore. You can do it anytime. You don't need to wait for a new year. And wherever you are in your life right now, I hope that it's going well. If it's not going well, I hope that things get better for you. And just remember to be kind to yourself. We are also our own worst critic, and most of the time the way that we talk to ourselves when things don't go our way is never the way that we would talk to a family or a friend or a loved one. So be kind to yourself. Whatever hopes, dreams, goals you have for this year and for your life, I believe in you guys. Thank you for watching. I hope that you have an amazing day. Bye.